There's a number that keeps appearing in the headlines: 1 in 4. 1 in 4 adults report feeling completely alone, disconnected, invisible, like they exist just slightly outside of everyone else's life. The researchers call it an epidemic. The surgeons general write letters. The think pieces pile up, and somewhere in all of that noise, there is an implicit accusation aimed directly at people like you, because you cut people off, quietly, deliberately, one by one, and you don't feel like an epidemic. You feel like someone who finally figured something out. It started small, so small you almost didn't notice it happening. A notification, a name you used to answer without thinking. Now you just watch it. The screen glows, the name sits there, and something in you goes completely still. Not anxious, not guilty exactly, still. You set the phone face down. You go back to your tea, your book, the particular quality of silence in your apartment at 7 in the evening. And the thing nobody warns you about, the thing that surprises you even now, is how good that feels. Not empty, not cold, like setting down something heavy you forgot you were carrying. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why that feeling isn't a warning sign. It's a signal. But first, you need to understand what your body decided long before your mind caught up. That was the first time you noticed it, the weight of certain people. And once you notice a weight, you cannot unfeel it. So the process began. Not dramatically, you are not a dramatic person, or maybe you used to be and you grew out of it. No confrontations, no final conversations with a speech you'd rehearsed. And just a gradual, quiet recession. A message left unread for a day, then 2, then not answered at all. A coffee rescheduled once, twice, then stopped being rescheduled. A friendship that had been running on obligation and inertia for years, slowly allowed to come to its natural stop. You didn't slam any doors, you just stopped opening them. And here is what nobody tells you about that process. It has a sound, a very specific internal sound, somewhere between exhale and silence, that happens each time you let one of these connections go. It doesn't sound like loss, it sounds like a room after the last guest leaves, when you can finally stop performing and just stand in your own kitchen in the quiet. You started noticing who produced that sound and who didn't. The question is, where did this start? Not this week, not this year. On the real start, and the answer, when you finally see it, is going to feel less like a revelation and more like something you always knew but never had words for. Because this didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere very specific, and if you trace it back far enough, you'll find a child who was extraordinarily good at reading rooms. Before you could read books, you could read people. You knew the moment you walked into a space what the atmosphere was, whether it was safe to be loud or necessary to be small, whether the mood had shifted since morning, whether the smile meant what it was supposed to mean. You developed this skill the way all children develop the skills they need to survive, through repetition, through consequence, and through the nervous system quietly cataloging every variable in its environment and building a map. The map said, closeness comes with unpredictability. The people who are supposed to be safest are also the people from whom you can never fully relax. And somewhere deep in the architecture of who you were becoming, a conclusion formed. Not in words, children don't have words for it, but in the body. In the way you started keeping a small, private part of yourself just slightly out of reach. A reserve, an interior room with no key given out. Attachment researchers have a name for what forms in children who grow up in emotionally unpredictable environments. They call it avoidant attachment. And that name is unfortunate because it sounds like a flaw, like something that needs correcting. What it actually is a strategy, and an intelligent, adaptive, neurologically sophisticated strategy for maintaining psychological stability when your environment cannot be relied upon to provide it. The child who learns to need less is not damaged. The child who learns to need less is surviving. And then the child grows up, carries the map, carries the strategy, meets people who feel familiar in ways that are not entirely safe, and the nervous system, that ancient, brilliant, endlessly loyal nervous system, recognizes the pattern and begins its work. This is the part that Stephen Porges spent decades trying to explain. The polyvagal theory, in plain language, is this. Your body has gears. There is a gear for genuine safety and connection. Your voice softens, your face opens, you can hear someone fully. There is a gear for threat. Your heart accelerates, and your focus sharpens. You prepare to move. And then there is the oldest gear, the one that belongs to the most ancient part of your nervous system, the gear for strategic withdrawal, for going still, for quietly, efficiently removing yourself from an environment your body has assessed as costing more than it returns. You didn't choose this gear, it chose you, and it is not malfunction. It is a finely tuned threat detection system doing precisely what it was built to do: protect you from environments that have, historically, been worth protecting yourself from. The research confirms what your body already knows. A 2011 study in Nature Neuroscience found that social pain activates the same neural regions as physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, the structures associated with actual bodily harm. Your brain does not file rejection and a twisted ankle in different categories. It files them together under danger, and it builds responses accordingly. So when your nervous system flags a particular dynamic as costly, as subtly threatening, as requiring the kind of constant vigilance that leaves you exhausted by Tuesday, it is not being paranoid, it is being precise. It has data, years of it. The withdrawal is the data acting. But here's where it gets complicated, because not all withdrawal is the same. And the difference between the kind that saves you and the kind that slowly isolates you, that distinction is everything. And most people never learn to tell them apart. Watch how it happens. Not all at once. That is not how it works for someone like you. You do not make announcements, you do not deliver verdicts. And you simply begin the slow calibration. Less availability, shorter replies. The warmth that used to be automatic becomes considered, rationed, eventually withheld. You are not punishing anyone. You are protecting something. The question is whether you understand yet what you are protecting. There is a distinction that most conversations about isolation refuse to make, and it is the most important distinction you will ever draw for yourself. The difference between a wall and a boundary. They look identical from the outside. Both result in distance, but they come from completely different places. A wall is built from fear. It is indiscriminate. Everyone is kept at the same remove because the system cannot afford to assess them individually. Walls are exhausting because they require constant maintenance. And they make you lonely in a way that has a hollow quality, a longing underneath the architecture. A person behind a wall is not at peace. A person behind a wall is fortified. There is a difference. A boundary is built from knowledge. Specific, hard-won, self-referential knowledge about what costs you and what restores you. A boundary is not a barrier against all people. It is a careful determination of which people get access to which parts of you and on what terms. The boundary is what you are building. Even now, even in the quiet recession of this current season of your life, it doesn't look tidy from the outside. It rarely does while it's being constructed. And here is the honest truth about the people you are letting go. The CDC data on isolation is real. Chronic loneliness carries genuine physiological cost. But what that data consistently underweights is the cost of the wrong connections. The social stress literature is clear. Relationships that keep your nervous system in low-grade alert, that require you to manage someone else's volatility, absorb their projections, perform a version of yourself that is slightly smaller or more careful than your actual self. Those relationships activate the same inflammatory pathways as isolation. You can be in a room full of people and your body can be running a threat response the entire time. So when someone falls away, when the process you have been quietly engaged in removes a particular source of noise from your environment, the question worth sitting with is not, did I do something wrong? The question is, how does your body feel now? Did your sleep change? And do you notice yourself thinking more clearly, moving through your days without the faint static of anticipatory dread? Because if the answer is yes, if withdrawal brought relief, that relief is information. It is your nervous system reporting the results of a controlled experiment it ran on your behalf. The experiment was, what happens when this specific source of dysregulation is removed? And the answer was, I recover. I return to something I recognize as myself. That is not coldness. That is the nervous system completing a circuit it has been trying to complete for years. There is one word that changes everything about how you understand what you've been building. Not loneliness, not isolation, something else entirely. And once you hear it framed correctly, you won't be able to unsee it. Solitude. Not loneliness. These are not the same word, not the same experience, not even remotely the same internal weather. Loneliness is the ache of wanting connection you don't have. It has a hunger to it, it reaches. Solitude is something else entirely. Solitude is what you find in the quiet of a Wednesday evening, when no one is coming over and you are not waiting for anyone. It is full rather than empty. It has a texture, a quality of presence that the philosopher Paul Tillich described as the glory of being alone. The same external condition as loneliness, entirely different from within. If you have built this, if you have cultivated an interior life rich enough that your own company is not a punishment, but an actual preference, then what looks like retreat to people watching from outside is, from inside, something closer to arrival. And so here is where the process has brought you. A smaller circle, getting smaller still, quieter days, a life that, measured by certain metrics, looks like a kind of poverty. Fewer invitations, fewer obligations, less of the social texture that most people use as evidence that they are living correctly. And there is one study, 75 years, hundreds of lives, tracked from beginning to end, that found something so simple it almost seems wrong. Something that directly contradicts everything you've been told about the life you're building. The Harvard researchers spent 75 years following hundreds of people through their entire adult lives. And after all of that time, all of that data, the answer was almost embarrassingly simple. Not the number of relationships, the quality. One relationship that is genuinely safe, where you can be fully present without managing the atmosphere, without the static, without the performance, does more for your longevity and your psychological stability than a crowded life of connections that cost you. You are not retreating, you are curating. The people who remain, the ones who made it through the quiet process of your calibration, they are there not because they were convenient, not because of history or habit, or the inertia of long acquaintance. They are there because your nervous system, refined by decades of precise data collection, assessed them as worth the vulnerability of proximity. That is not a small thing. That is connection operating at its most intelligent. Tonight, the phone might light up. A name might appear, someone from an earlier chapter, on someone the process has already decided on, and you will feel that stillness, that particular quality of clarity that you used to mistake for coldness and now understand as knowledge. You will set the phone face down. You will return to the quiet you chose, and for the first time, maybe, you will do it without the question underneath, without the low hum of, "Am I broken? Is something wrong with me? Why can't I be different?" Not broken, not cold, not a cautionary tale about isolation. A person who finally learned to trust what they know.